term, and in our case, a very large
Okay, we're not going to get started here, so just relax. We don't have a quorum. We don't have a quorum. We will have a quorum shortly then. We can't open a meeting without it. Okay, we can begin. We have 7. You are 7. You are 8. We can begin. And you're doing the prayer. And you're doing the prayer, which I know you can do it on your feet. You are now. What? Package totally coming. You ready? Yes, sure. They're coming. We'll start with pledge. Yeah, we have 8. Yeah, she made 8. Yeah, you ready? Yeah. I'd like to call the February, I was going to say financial rules, February board meeting to order. Up. Thank you. I was just told you weren't coming. So we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance and then followed by the prayer by Legislator Fitzpatrick. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lord, thank you for this gathering. Lord, please remind us of this for the public, what our faith is all about, and certainly give us the message of gathering. We thank you for this day. This is what will be called a rolling roll call as people come in. So, Mr. Administrator.
Legislator Doldo. Johnson. McBride. Monticelli. Nabawanik. Fitzpatrick. Adsit. Jarrell. Doctor. Peck. Gray.
Here.
Most here.
Did you count them quick? 9.
Yeah, oh, more. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
10.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
11. Count the empty seats. It's easier.
Yeah, we're good.
Privilege of the floor. Would anybody like to address the board? If so, please step forward, state your name and address, and keep it 5 minutes or less. Hearing none. Then we'll have a presentation from Christine Watkins, the Executive Director of the Soil and Water Conservation District, and she will inform us on manure management. So, how appropriate.
There's a switch right there.
There. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for having me here tonight. This video that you're going to watch is a collaboration that the Soil and Water District staff and Soil and Water District Board came together on 2 years ago. One of the directives for the Soil and Water District is to help protect the natural resources of the county. One method that we use is to deal with manure management practices on dairy farms. And what we learned is that many people today don't understand the difference between some of the bigger dairy farms today as compared to what we all remember as the mom and pop dairy farms from 50 years ago. Nothing different other than the scale, but people don't seem to understand that. So we thought it was very important to put this video together to help people understand why we're doing what we're doing, that we're doing this to protect water quality, and to get a perspective from the farmer. The video highlights the porters of Porterdale Farms, and we have some other people that speak on there that give their expert guidance. And we've been very happy with this, and I truly appreciate the support that our district board gave to give us the go-ahead and roll with this. So with that being said, I don't know if we'll need the lights dimmed a little bit maybe. I apologize, it is lengthy, but with this topic it was important to try to get it all in a timely manner.
Well, our Porter family came to the Dry Hill area south of Watertown in 1938. My father was a very good cowman, and so that was his emphasis of the farm, and it continued as we expanded. And over the years, farming has gone from a small family farm, and in our case, a very large family farm. But the family is the whole focus of what we do.
Growing on a farm and being able to see what you did every day, whether that was planting the crops or milking the cows or building the fence or building the barn, you got to see what you did at the end of the day, and that's something that really, it's hard to learn at a 9-to-5 type job. Dinner conversations tend to be about the farm. Holiday conversations tend to be about the farm, and it just kind of gets in all our blood, and that's what we're passionate about. Nowadays, the larger dairies are highly regulated, and nutrient management plans are a very big part of that regulation from the environmental side. Everything, that we do is based on a statistic or a number and science behind it, and then we have to follow those rules and regulations in order to be compliant with our current environmental plan.
So some of the concepts behind what drove the regulations that were initially put out in 1999 had to do with pretty much activity in the late 80s and early 1990s when a farm in western New York was sued by neighbors. The lawsuit focused on manure applications and farms growing, having more manure to spread, requiring more land to do that, to recycle those nutrients properly, and it got the attention of more neighbors.
So the regulations came about because the public wanted to assure themselves that all farms were managing it appropriately.
It's made us, number one, as farmers, responsible for our actions, but it's also helped us become more efficient and more profitable in the long run.
The permit, again, requires a third-party certified planner to evaluate the farmstead for sources of pollution. So that's the farmstead component. There's also a field component. So all the lands that operation rents or owns and operates and applies manure to must have a fairly significant and complicated set of a nutrient management plan applied to those lands.
So yearly we sit down with our planner and review the amount of manure that can be applied each year on each field. Then we take that information and we'll sit with whether it's a crop consultant or an extension agronomist, and we come up with a plan as to how much nutrients we might be shy in terms of what that crop requires, or if we need any, perhaps manure itself is all that's required for that particular field for a particular crop.
The decision of when to spread manure is very important, and farmers take this very seriously. having manure storage allows that farm to apply manure in a more timely fashion in relation to when the crops are able to receive it, and hopefully when the weather is and the soils are in better condition.
We learned early on that manure was good for the land. We might not always have known why, but fields that received manure always grew a little better crop. As the herd grew, it became a bigger and bigger challenge to spread that manure on a daily basis, especially in inclement weather, whether it's a blizzard of 77 or rainfall. You didn't want to be getting stuck all the time. So storages became a necessity for us as we got bigger to avoid having to fight the weather. And as we learned more and more about the value manure, it became a bigger part of our operation as we grew, because that manure was no longer a waste product, but a valuable product.
So one of the challenges that we face as dairy producers is the amount of time that we have, the window that we have in the spring or fall to get the manure on the field.
In reality, there's like 6 weeks that we have to get that manure out, incorporate it into the soil, and then plant the crop.
I think most of us as farmers, we would all love to have 30, 40 cows and milk them and have a white picket fence. But as the farms have gotten larger, we've had to adapt and change with the times. And some of those changes have led to having manure storages as we become bigger.
Manure storage allows the farms to focus their labor and their management and to make optimal decisions about recycling the manure nutrients.
It's very common to have 2 to 3 years of planning put into those structures by certified engineers, by our CAFO planners. Most of the research that we use just on the farm either comes from Cornell or Penn State or Wisconsin, and all of those factors, what type of storage to build, how big, how much rainfall we get in a year, all of those things really go into the planning of size, scope, and scale of these structures.
When we look for a location for manure storage, not only do we look for the land base that it's going to be utilized in, but also where it lies with respect to the surrounding area. Which way the wind blows, which way the traffic would come in to load it and to unload it, how it might be utilized in the landscape, and then how it fits in as far as the community. To determine if the soil is suitable, we end up doing test pits to look at the type of soil, the plasticity of it, and pretty much looking at how impermeable we can make it with compactive effort. If the soil is not suitable for an earthen manure storage, then we go to different structure types. And so we can either use a polyethylene liner, which is impermeable. We can put that in based on an earthen one, or we can go to a concrete or a steel structure. On all of these structures, they are designed by a professional engineer utilizing the standards of the Natural Resource Conservation Service. And the engineer has to certify that. Of course, it's a professional engineer, and they go through a certification process as well. One of the ethics of a professional engineer is to look out for the health and safety of the public. And so each design is looked at to make sure that it will not fail. So once the design is completed, the farm reviews it, we get a contractor, and then as it is constructed, we apply construction inspection to make sure that as it's being built, everything that the design is called for is there. If issues come up, they can be addressed, that might be uncovered during the construction process, and to make sure that in the end, that design, that completed project can be certified as meeting the standards. In a municipal system, they discharge the treated effluent into the water, where farms recycle the nutrients to the land.
So the dairy farm cycle is a really beautiful situation. The cows are making milk, obviously, for human consumption. The farmer's growing crops to feed the cows, and then the manure that's a byproduct of milk production is then used to feed the crops.
So for us in general, we start in the spring by loading tractor trailers, and we spread those tractor trailers, land apply those tractor trailers on the fields that are dry, maybe don't have as big a hill, and we can get on them. We also transfer manure from tractor trailers to tank spreaders, and it's very common for us to inject the manure directly into the ground with those tank spreaders, and it does a couple things. It really keeps the odor down, but it also decreases the chance or risk of runoff. The third way that we like to apply manure in the spring is with a drag line system, drag hose system, and the amount of manure that can be applied in a shortest period of time with the least compaction to the soil is really drag lining, and that's really gained popularity in the last decade. So once we're done with drag lining, we go right into planting our crops, our corn, or our new season's alfalfa. So after we cut first cutting, we generally like to apply manure within 2 to 3 days after cutting. We try to use as big equipment as we can to get in and get off the ground, causing the least compaction of the soil and really the least exposure to neighbors. After second and third cutting, we go right into chopping corn.
Enter into the fall season, certainly manure is still being applied on the fields, and many times it's in conjunction with a cover crop, whether it's rye or winter wheat, something along that line, or it's just a matter of building up your other nutrients such as phosphorus or potassium that stays in the soil and is not leached out nearly as quickly as perhaps nitrogen.
This is all a drive to utilize nutrients more effectively, being able to store them up and put them out at a time when the land is better able to receive and recycle the nutrients. The only way to manage this process effectively is to have manure storage.
So when it comes down to it, if you're going to have animals, you're going to have some waste. And ultimately, in a perfect world, we find a way to maximize the utilization of that waste product. For us as dairy farmers, that manure does have a lot of value to us, and ultimately I'd love to see some technology come along that we're able to only use manure and not have to buy any fertilizer. Manure storages have allowed us to maximize and utilize the value of that waste product.
It's just the direction that we have to go to stay in business. In fact, most of my life, the things we did was to survive within the industry, to be more efficient. It's part of our stewardship on the farm is to take care of all that we have, whether it's animals or whether it's land. I mean, they don't make any more land, and we happen to have some very fertile land that we'd like to increase that fertility so that we can grow a greater abundance of crop on the land.
You know, there'll be more and more regulations, and those regulations are for the good of the public and the community and the farmer himself. We really hope that we can make a compromise with the public and the regulators that, you know, the farms will be able to continue to be in business, and as surrounding rural areas keep growing and there's more and more people that are coming closer to agriculture, that somewhere in the middle, you know, we can all find a solid ground and move forward together.
So our hope is that As we go through this process, we're going to continue to help farms build manure storage structures, and some of you may have constituents that may question whether this should be done and how it should be done. So hopefully you can use this resource. It's on our website. It's also on YouTube. And as always, if you have any questions, please give me a call. Thank you.
Any questions? Comments? Yes, Mr. Monticelli.
Thank you, Chairman Gray. I'd just like to thank Executive Director Watkins for taking the time out tonight to come and show this to us. And I really felt it was important for elected representatives to see this, to be able to convey this to the public and then direct them to this video, assuming you think it was a good video, because for me personally, I found it to be enlightening. I mean, I just, manure, it's something to joke about, or I'd like to even not make jokes about it, because it precipitates the negative, comments about what it is. But when you listen to these folks explain how it's a big recycling project, and it pays for itself. Thank you. Video
was well done.
Thank you.
Further comments, questions? None? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Very informative. Okay. Is there anybody that wishes the minutes of the last meeting to be read? If not, is there any additions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, then they'll stand as presented. Presentation, petitions, notice, and communications.
First, we have a letter on file from Senator Ritchie in regards to the governor's veto of the Indigent Defense Bill and her pledge to seek the same reforms that were almost approved in 2016 and 2017. We are in receipt of 2016 annual reports from the county auditor, dog control, county clerk, probation, and Cornell Cooperative Extension. Finally, we have on file a copy of all resolutions passed by the NISAC membership last week at the State Association Legislative Conference in Albany, if anybody wants to peruse them. That is it.
Okay. Reports of standing committees.
We have reports of the Finance and Rules Committee reporting favorably on resolutions 40, 41, 43, 44, 45, 47, 48, 49, and 50. We also have a report of the Finance and Rules Committee recommending approval of legislator expenses.
Okay. Reports of county officers and others.
We have a report from the county treasurer on investments in cash on hand, also from the county administrator on budget transfers. And this month we actually have a report of the county auditor for erroneous assessments.
Okay. Local laws, resolutions, motions. Resolution number 37, please.
First resolution is payment of legislator expenses.
First, before we go further with this one, I'd like a motion and a second to amend this resolution to include the cost of the mileage in the toll expenses that have been now included since the original conference fees were put out forward. So the original amount only included the hotel and the conference fees. So may I have a motion to amend? Legislator Fitzpatrick, second. Legislator Doldo. Any discussion on the amendment? Yes, Mr. Peck.
Do you have a new total then?
New total is that the new total there, the
$3,877.91.
Yep. I didn't know if that was the new or the old. It's an additional $762.
And really our Finance Committee meeting was before the conference, and now the board meeting is after the conference, so we have all the data.
Yep.
Yeah, Mr. Monticelli informed me that the next sheet had the correct number.
That's our finance chair at work. Further discussion on the amendment? Vote. All in favor on the amendment? Aye. Opposed? Carried. All in favor on the resolution as amended? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 38.
Appointing members to Soil and Water Conservation District Board of Directors.
Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution 39.
Canceling delinquent real property taxes and prospectively exempting from real property taxes certain parcels of property. Excuse me.
Okay. Discussion. Yes, Mr. Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just kind of curious, should we table this until Mr. Ferris returns so he can vote on his own resolution? Uh-huh.
He's got personal injury at situation tonight, so.
Yeah, I just wish to comment, though, that I appreciate the work that the ad hoc committee is doing in trying to come up with creative solutions on what to do with the parcels that they are dealing with, but I guess the one concern and warning, at least in going forward, is what becomes a long-term game plan. You know, this becomes a short-term tourniquet in a way of, okay. Well, it just becomes a short-term tourniquet in terms of us to stop bleeding of paying for properties that aren't returning an investment, so to speak. But, you know, and I'm always much more interested in what is the long-term game plan than, you know, to bring these either back into compliance, back into good, productive usefulness, because that's what I'm interested in, is productivity.
So just a little bit of history on this committee. This goes back to Legislator Bailey when he was here. So, what, six years now at least? It has been a lot of work to this point, and not easy work, and sometimes it's involved not only a lot of our time of our county attorney, our real property department, administration. We've also had outside counsel on this, and as well as engineering companies. So there's a tremendous amount of work. There is a game plan. This is not short-term, this is long-term, and this is kind of what you're seeing as part of that game plan come together, where really the committee is really identifying three categories to kind of, so to speak, buckets that they're putting the property in, they're placing the property in. There is properties that you're dealing with tonight, which are in the unforeseeable future not going to be able to be resolved. The magnitude of the environmental issues are beyond our means. So unless somebody steps up to the plate, and talking about state agencies maybe, or some other some other cooperation between multi-municipal situations, they're not going to be cleaned up. So there's no sense in continuing to pay taxes, no sense of your constituents paying taxes through their county tax bill for other people who are not paying their taxes. So it's a matter of equity and fairness for people. The other category is there are properties that are being placed in further review to determine which way they're going to go. They're either going to go to an avenue where they're going to get cleaned up of some sense and then put back in the tax rolls, or they're going to end up canceling the taxes. So they're under further investigation. And in some cases, we've had phase 1s on them. Some of them are going to require phase 2s in order to identify the magnitude so we don't get involved in something that we can't afford or don't want to take on that kind of cost in order to clean up. So, certainly we're looking for partners. We've had partners in the past, Wilna being one. We've cleaned up properties in Natural Bridge and Munns Corners. Antwerp has properties that they're dealing with. Adams has properties that they've dealt with in the past and dealing with in the future going forward. So there have been a number of towns that have come to the table, and we've worked cooperatively to turn these properties around and get them back on the tax rolls. So having said that, that's kind of a long-term plan. There's a vast number of properties. Our attorney can probably add something to them, but there's a vast number of properties, and they just take a lot of time to work through.
If I can just elaborate a little, each property is a little bit different, and it's hard to generalize about all of them either, and so I'll just focus on two of them that are on the list before you tonight. In Orleans, there's 2 gas stations. I know for a fact the Department of Environmental Conservation is looking at them very carefully, that I do fully expect that the DEC will probably do a cleanup on them sometime in the next few years. I don't know how long that will take. When they are clean, we will be positioned to proceed with a foreclosure and perhaps get them back on the tax rolls after that has happened. But again, not knowing how long that will take, we believe it's prudent at this point to move ahead with a cancellation of the taxes until that occurs. Can I say that's going to happen on any of the others on the list before you tonight? I cannot. We certainly are able to follow that similar procedure if there is interest on any other party of coming forward and initiating a cleanup, but time will tell. So every property is a little different. It's going to depend on availability of state and federal funds. We encourage anyone who wants to partner with us to try and work something out. Certainly willing to do so, but really this list is comprised of properties that, as I said in the memos I sent, are of relatively low marketability, even if they were cleaned up, low value cleaned up, and don't seem to be too likely to be cleaned up in the near future. So that's the general background of what we expect to become with these properties.
Sound good? Answer, kind of. Okay. Yes, Mr. Giro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So maybe this is a question for Dave too, but so do the owners retain ownership until we actually foreclose on these?
Yeah.
Okay, so there still could be some, but they won't be taxed.
That's right. The tax, they go off the tax rolls.
But they retain ownership.
That's right.
So but they would still have, there's still back taxes on these.
There are still back taxes that have accrued to date.
Okay, so to reclaim the property after, if they decided to clean it up themselves, for example, they would still have to pay the back taxes at that point.
Everything accrued to date, yes, if they tried to sell it.
Okay, so, and with things that are eyesores, not just maybe environmental issues, but aesthetic issues as well, that would be maybe affecting neighborhood or neighbor value, that kind of thing. Is there, there's nothing to prevent the townships to take care of something like that at the same time, correct? Okay.
Codes can generally act without taking title, if it's a code issue. Did I say that? Towns. Did I say codes? Towns can act if it's a code issue without taking title. That's the situation here, is we don't want to get in the chain of title of these properties. So, which puts the liability on us. Further discussion? Yes, Mr. Peck?
Just, you make mention that, all right, so today is the absolute cutoff date as far as interest and penalties accruing any further, correct? There's nothing going forward.
So there will be one more step in the process, which is myself as tax enforcement officer, based on this resolution, issuing a certificate of cancellation of future taxes. But yeah, it'll be in the very near future that they would go off the tax roll.
So then, as Mr. Jarrow was alluding to, so if somebody comes back and puts the cash down in front of you and says that here, I'm caught up, and and then he has full-fledged ownership of it, but from this point going forward, there's no taxes to be levied on it, so all he owes you is then from today through yesteryears then, correct?
Yeah, and that's the bit of the tricky part about it, is keeping our eye on it to know that a cleanup has occurred. And once we know that, we bring it back in front of you and say, this property is now no longer represents the threat or liability that it once did. Restore it to the tax roll. So that requires, both the town assessor and any other officers that become aware of what's happened out there to report it up the chain, so we become aware of it and take that action.
So 10 years down the road, the owner comes back puts his cash down, and, you know, whether he cleans it up or not, does it really matter? You know, he puts his cash down, he has a full-fledged ownership of it once
No,
again.
it has nothing to do with ownership.
Okay.
Or paying the taxes. It is taking the step to clean up the property or remedy whatever it is that we find is the impediment to taking the property through foreclosure. That's the key here. There's an impediment in each of these cases to our selling the property at a tax sale. And it can be either environmental contamination, it could be a structure that is so structurally compromised that the cost of removing it is greater than the value of the property. Those are the two general situations we will find in these properties.
I'm just, you know, forgive me for belaboring this. I just want to be able to understand that, you know, if you go forward from here, it's essentially a free property incurring nothing. So, you know, you make mention that it has liabilities to be able to, for us to be able to foreclose on, but the individual who still owns it retains title to it. He's only held on a noose by us because he hasn't paid his taxes. So he pays his taxes. It can still be a dump, but he's paid his taxes, and he's free and clear again, correct?
That's right.
And so then we've got X number of years then that he's held tax-free, and it's still in the same situation that it was when we take it off tonight.
Yes.
And that's where, that's the point I'm coming to, is that, is there like an inflationary trigger then that we could have to protect ourselves, so to speak? That you're cutting this off at this point in time, money is worth this much at this point in time, but if the individual retains its ownership and puts the cash down, he's had X number of years of no penalties and interest occurring. And so he's given us money that is worth less than it is when he comes in to pay you.
To answer your question, there's no future cost of money in equation in this deal. I think that cuts right to what you're looking for. There's no future cost of money. Today's price is what they owe. That's it.
So I think, you know, your option there of a time period of review, I think, would be prudent. So.
Okay. Further discussion? None? Yes, Mr. Doldo?
I just want to talk again about what I had said last time, the process that this went through, and it came about kind of quick. We weren't able to discuss this and have information ahead of time, and kind of being backed into a corner here at the last minute. Not so much for me, it doesn't affect the city, but for the other legislators that have to deal with the towns and explain to them how it works and what's going on. I would just like to see this changed in the future so we get updates along the way. Not pointing a finger at anybody. I know there are some time crunches and a lot of information, but if they need some good examples, I think we've done well on our communications committee, and if they need to call any of us for advice, we're more than happy to help them disseminate the information. Thanks.
Point well taken. Any good questions, by the way? Are there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution 40.
Authorizing agreement amending the 2017 county budget in relation to the fiscal year 2016-17 State Public Safety Answering Point Sustainment Grant.
Discussion? None? A roll call vote, please.
Legislator Ansett? Doldo? Peck? Doctour? Maxon? Monticelli? McBride? Jarrow? Johnson? Nebewanik? Fitzpatrick? Gray?
Yes.
Motion carries. Reappropriating funds from the various unspent grants. Resolution 41.
There you go.
There we go.
I gave him the hand signals.
Excuse me. Reappropriating funds for various unspent grants relative to the Fire and Emergency Management Department and amending the 2017 county budget in relation thereto.
Discussion? None? Roll call vote, please.
Legislator Fitzpatrick? Maxon? Adsit? Monticelli? Peck? Doctour? McBride? Nebewanik? Jarrow? Johnson? Doldo? Gray?
Yes.
Motion carries.
42.
Authorizing extension of memorandum of agreement with the New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services.
Discussion? None? All in favor, aye? Opposed? Carried. 43.
Authorizing agreement in connection with the New York State Snowmobile Trails Grant and Aid Program and amending the 2017 budget in relation thereto.
Discussion? None? Roll call vote, please.
Legislator Doctour? Adsit? Jarrow? Doldo? Maxon? McBride? Nebewanik? Johnson? Monticelli? Peck? Fitzpatrick? Gray?
Yes.
Motion carries.
44.
Amending the 2016 county budget relative to overtime reimbursement for the Sheriff's Department.
Discussion? None? Roll call vote, please.
Legislator Jarrow? Doctour? Johnson? Maxon? Adsit? Fitzpatrick? McBride? Doldo? Monticelli? Nebewanik? Peck? Gray?
Yes.
Motion carries. Authorizing fiscal year 2016 Operation Stone Garden Grant Agreement and amending the 2017 county budget in relation thereto.
Discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Legislator Peck? McBride? Adsit? Jarrow? Reed? Doldo? Maxon? Nebewanik? Fitzpatrick? Johnson? Doctour? Monticelli? Gray?
Yes.
Motion carries.
46.
Reappointing members to the Community Services Board.
Discussion? All in favor, aye? Opposed? Carried. 47.
Amending the 2017 county budget relative to Veterans Peer Support Pilot Program.
Discussion? None? Roll call vote, please.
Legislator Nebewanik? Johnson? Doldo? Maxon? McBride? Fitzpatrick? Monticelli? Jarrow? Adsit? Peck? Doctour? Gray?
Yes.
Motion carries.
48.
Accepting funding in connection with the public health rabies control activities and amending the 2017 county budget in relation thereto.
Discussion? None? Roll call vote.
Legislator Jarrow? Adsit? Nebewanik? McBride? Johnson? Fitzpatrick? Doctour? Monticelli? Doldo? Maxon? Peck? Gray?
Yes.
Motion carries.
49.
Amending the 2017 county budget to reappropriate lead poisoning prevention program funding.
Discussion? None? Roll call vote, please.
Legislator McBride? Johnson? Yes. Nabawanik? Doldo? Reed? Fitzpatrick? Peck? Adsit? Zero? Yes. Monticelli? Maxon? Yes. Doctour? Gray?
Yes.
Motion carries. 50. Accepting donation on behalf of the Department of Social Services and amending the 2017 county budget.
Discussion? None? Roll call vote, please.
Legislator Johnson? Yes. Doldo? Yes. Peck? Yes. Fitzpatrick? Yes. Gerald? Yes. Adsit? Yes. Doctour? Yes. McBride? Yes. Maxon? Yes. Nabawanik? Yes. Monticelli? Yes. Gray?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And before we go forward with we have two more resolutions. I need a motion, a second, to waive the rules, permit the introduction of the two additional, Mr. Peck and Mr. Monticelli. All in favor, waiving the rules? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution number
51.
51.
Concurring in the settlement of tax certiorari proceeding and authorizing refund of taxes in connection therewith.
May I have a motion, please? Mr. Doctor. Second, Ms. Fitzpatrick. Any discussion? None? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution number 52.
Appointing members of the Jefferson County Industrial Development Agency.
May I have a motion, please? Mr. Jarrow, second, Mr. Maxim. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Kicking and screaming, but he did it. So I just, before we go further on that one, I would just like to thank Mr. Maxim, congratulate Mr. Maxim on his new job, and thank you for your service to the IDA board. Much appreciated. And Mr. Johnson, you'll do just fine there. Trust me. What's that? Trust me. Just trust me. Just always believe me. Now, just quickly, I'm going to entertain a motion to go into executive session for a very brief moment, and won't keep you long. It's going to be regarding contract negotiations. So I may have a motion, Mr. Maxson, second, Mr. Jarrow. Any discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Thanks. What's it? Before you do that, I just wanted to introduce started in Mindy's number and information contact from the student who started that great contact all about. Great.